We're going to talk about the basics for wrist vibrato. If you're not sure if you're a wrist person or an arm person, you can either come and ask me, or you can try both videos and see which one's more comfortable for you. But you should pick one and stick with it. Don't keep going back and forth because it's only going to get confusing because they're very different. With wrist vibrato, the most important thing is that we get this kind of motion with our wrist. So the first thing I want you to try to do is just hold without your instrument in your hand, just hold your wrist out in front of you and bend it back and forth like you were going to wave at yourself, but only with your wrist. If you have a pizza wrist vibrato is going to be very challenging for you because your tendency is to go too far this way, and then you're going to have a hard time getting your fingers to move. So get rid of that pizza. Okay, then I want you to take your hand. We're going to start way up here just to start with. Put the palm of your hand up against the shoulder of your instrument. Your thumb is going to be somewhere on the back. And just nice and relaxed, barely holding on. And I want you to take one finger. It's probably easier to start with your second or your third finger. First and fourth finger are kind of hard to start with. Just one of them, and put it down so that the tip of the finger is touching the edge of your instrument right here. We've got that wrist motion. We're going to use that motion to pull our finger back and forth. Your palm will be touching the whole time. If you're having a hard time because your palm is coming away from the instrument, just go back to this. Your arm should stay exactly where it is. It shouldn't be going in and out. Then put your palm back, and you can practice waving without your finger touching. Again, if you see your arm doing this, maybe hold on to it, or do this in a mirror. Then you can put your finger back down, and you should really feel yourself rolling on your finger. You should try this on at least 2 fingers and practice this until you feel pretty comfortable with it. And then once you feel comfortable with this, you're ready for step 2. Step 2 is to move over to from off the shoulder onto the fingerboard. So we're just going to take our finger where it is here and move it over right to the fingerboard. Your thumb's going to stay maybe in about the same place, or it can come around this way a little bit. I don't want you to push down a string yet though, so let's put our finger maybe in between D and A if you're a violin, or D and G if you're a viola, so it's touching the fingerboard but not pushing down a string. If you try to push down a string right now, you're just going to create too much tension. Okay, your palm is still touching. Your thumb should stay nice and relaxed. Then I want you to practice rolling on your finger. And you should notice you're not going side to side. You're staying parallel to the string. Okay, you're going to practice this step on at least 2 fingers and practice this until you feel really comfortable. Then you can move on to step 3. Step 3 is just to move our hand a little bit further away from the instrument. We're going to create a spacer for ourselves so that we still have something for our palm to hang on to. I want you to take 2 fingers in your bow hand, and you're going to put them against the side of the instrument where your palm was touching before. And then you're going to take your palm and touch it to your fingers. Your thumb is definitely going to be on the side of the neck now. And you should definitely have a space here. If you're squeezing with this knuckle joint, you won't be able to get your fingers to move, so make sure you still have a space. Keep your palm touching your fingers, and before you put a finger down, you can just practice waving. Make sure that your arm isn't moving. And then when you feel ready, you can put down a finger still in between the strings. Practice this again on at least 2 fingers until you feel really comfortable with it. Then you can move on to step 4. Step 4 is to get rid of our spacer. Okay, so now our palm is not going to be touching anything. We still have to get that motion going. So I want you to, if you still have your fingers here, take them away. So you're not going to be touching the shoulder. Still going to have a space in here. Your thumb's going to stay nice and relaxed. And you may want to start off by just trying waving without putting a finger down. Here's where it gets really tricky, because your arm starts to want to move. Once you get rid of that spacer, keep your arm in the same place. Okay, and then when you feel ready, put a finger down, not pushing down a string yet, just touching the fingerboard. Remember, you're moving parallel to the fingerboard or to your strings, not side to side, but parallel. See how I still have that space in there? Then when you feel comfortable with this, you can try pushing down a string. Here's the thing though, you don't need to push down your strings as hard as you think you do. So just find how much do you have to push before the string touches the fingerboard. If you push it down too far, or if you squeeze on it, it's going to be too hard to get your wrist to move. And I want you to practice this with at least 2 fingers until you feel really comfortable with this, and then we're ready to add bow. Adding bow can get a little bit tricky because we're moving our left hand a lot faster than we're moving our bow. So I want you to start and get your vibrato ready to go. You should be at a point where you can do vibrato, you can do this motion for at least a minute. You shouldn't be squeezing, you should still have your space. Okay? And the first step is just to air bow. Usually when people start out with vibrato, they get this kind of thing, where they're trying to move their bow back and forth the same way that their fingers are moving. So you have to practice until you can move your bow very smoothly while your fingers go back and forth. You also want to make sure that you're not getting like jerky motions out of your bow. So just air bow. And when you feel really comfortable with that, you're ready to start making some sounds. Do not try to do vibrato too fast, otherwise you'll end up with too much tension in your hand. It won't sound very good. Just do a slow vibrato. Eventually you can speed it up, but only when you feel comfortable moving to the next speed. And if you practice this every day, you will be a vibrato pro in no time.